Ada and Bumi registered, or rather enrolled, in a fashion house, and their aim was to study fashion. Well, one day, the owner of the fashion house, Mr. Douglas, came into the establishment and met with all the new students of his fashion house. On meeting Ada and Bumi, he asked them one simple question: what are you doing here? And their answer to him individually, or their response to him, was they are here to learn about fashion so they can be the best at what they do. Now, as days went by, on closer observation, Mr. Douglas observed that Ada was very swift and fast in learning everything that had to do with fashion. In fact, she absorbed everything being taught to her like a sponge absorbs water. Unlike Bumi, who had a lot of difficulty understanding the simplest of things that was being taught. But one very important thing he noticed also about Bumi was the fact that when she was faced with a challenge that was so big for her to understand, she resorted to singing. And anytime she opened her mouth to sing, the atmosphere of the whole fashion house changed. Everybody became uplifted. It was so much that everyone in the fashion house always waited for Bumi to come to shop so she could sing, because once she started singing, everybody was willing to go about their work with such swiftness and joy. In life, you see, the why matters more importantly than the what. Mr. Douglas, not knowing so much, asked them the what. But if only he had known, he would have also asked the why of their existence. And I'm sure he would have been able to advise Bumi properly that the fashion house was not where she was supposed to be. Your purpose determines your function. Let's give another example. If I'm about to make 2 dresses, one for summer and one for winter, because their purposes are different, everything about their make will be entirely different. From the fabric to the style, and everything that I would decide about those clothes will be different. Why? Their why matters. And until you discover your why, your what is actually irrelevant. Hello everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of the Review With Me podcast. I'm your host and your walk-through reading coach, Mrs. Tamuno, and we have been reading the book In Pursuit of Purpose by Miles Monroe. I hope you've been able to catch up on chapter 1, 2, and 3 episodes, because today we are reading chapter 4, and chapter 4 is titled The Priorities of Purpose. Now, before we go on, please like, share, subscribe, and follow. Tag someone who you think needs to discover their why, because like I said, the why in life matters so much more than the what. Now, let's go on if you're ready. Your design is actually perfect for you. And why is your design perfect for you? So we'll be looking at why purpose should be prioritized. We'll be looking at your why, and then all you need to do is make it your own. Individualize it, and then begin to sit down and ask yourself some questions. So if you're ready, let's go right in. Number 1, purpose produces design. Now, design predicts potential. The design of a thing is what predicts its potential. The potential of a thing is actually found in how it is designed to be. Now, I'll still use a blender. I don't know why I just like using a blender for an example. The design of a blender is not like that of a car. The design of a blender is not like that of a knife. So when you look at the design of a blender, you actually realize that unlike a knife that you have to hold the thing and then begin to chop up, for the blender, the first thing about the design is you have to pour something in, and then when you pour something in, you realize that your hand can't also fit in to begin to chop it there. So what do you do next? You have to look for a way to turn it on. So the potential of a thing is found in its design. Now, this means purpose is an indication that of your potential. There are a lot of things inside of you, and once you begin to discover those things, they are a pointer to your purpose. That means if you know the intended purpose of an object, you also know what you can do with it. So you can buy something and not know what it's used for. Recently, my husband isn't around, so my son picked up something and he brought it to me. I'm still trying to figure out what that thing is, because I've not even seen it. I don't think I've seen that thing before. He just opened one of the drawers and then he brought it out, and I saw it with him and I quickly picked it. Now, this actually makes us know Just like I said in the last chapter, or in the previous chapter, chapter 3, one of the principles of purpose, we say that you don't know the purpose of something doesn't mean it doesn't have a purpose. I don't know the purpose of that thing yet, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a purpose. So because that thing has been designed with a potential, but because I've not yet discovered that potential yet, I can't even use it. So for me at that point, that thing is just there on its own. So what are we trying to say? Purpose produces a design, and then your design predicts your potential. All right, so let's go on. This automatically means that whatever purpose God has for one's life, He equips the person with all the abilities, the talents, the gifts, the capacities, the potential that they need to fulfill it. What are we trying to say? Whatever God has called you for, He has equipped you for it. And that is why we say one of the easiest ways to begin to discover purpose is in the pointer. The pointers are in your talents, your gift. What are those things that you just love to do? You do with ease. You don't even need anybody to prompt you. You don't need anybody to push you to do it. And when you're doing it, you do it with so much joy. You're just so joyful when doing it. You feel satisfaction when doing it. Those are pointers to your purpose. The next thing, or the next why or priority of purpose is purpose determines nature. When someone creates something, they create it to fulfill a particular purpose. The car was created to fulfill the purpose of, taking you from one place to another. The boat was, and that is on land. The boat was created to fulfill the purpose of taking you on water. And so everything actually has a purpose when it is being created for. Hence, when they are creating that thing, the build and the make, the structure or the overall nature of that thing is made to suit its purpose. Now, we can't take a boat that is supposed to move on water and bring it to land. Why? Because the make is not suited to move on land. We can't use a plane on land. Why? The make was not suited for it to. Imagine planes actually moving on the motor road, on our normal roads where vehicles move. Imagine if it were planes that were moving. How many planes would be able to pass at once? So everything was actually, the purpose of everything was suited, was made or fixed into its nature. So when you see something, that thing is built to fulfill a particular purpose. So what are we trying to say? The way you have been created, the way you have been shaped, the way you have been built was actually for a reason and a purpose. You are actually suitable and fit for the purpose that God has created you for. So you don't need to be, this actually erodes this thing of being envious of someone else, envious of a person's stature, envious of a person's height, envious of a person's beauty, or like we said, even the beauty that you call someone beautiful, it's actually based on your own perception. And that is why they said beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, because something may be beautiful to you but it's not beautiful to me. So you see that purpose was actually enclosed in nature. All right, so when God creates something, He puts in it the ability to fulfill its function. For example, we see birds have the ability to fly. That's their purpose, and because they have been created for that purpose, they have the ability to fly. He puts in fish the ability to swim, and that's why we cannot throw a monkey into the water and expect it to start swimming. Yes, we know it can be trained, but that is not its original ability. You have your own field, you have your own purpose, and it has been created and put into your nature. Everything about you. Nature is inherent in purpose. So let me use this opportunity to say something. So when I was much younger, my parents told me that I loved talking. In fact, then they didn't know better. Some people actually tell me, you talk a lot, you just like to talk. I loved talking. I always wanted to say something. Now, as I kept on growing and I started reading and learning about purpose, at first I felt I actually shut down because the way people were telling me I talk too much, it was hurting. But later I found out about something called intrapersonal skills, and I was like, okay, so intrapersonal skills doesn't have to do with the skills you can see, but it has to do with the skills that come from within. And one of them is talking. So what I just needed to do now was learn to talk properly. What I needed to do was learn to communicate something important and something, and that is why I'm here. I'm using one of my skills. I'm using my talking skills now, and I'm using it to do a review. So that thing was actually inside of me, but because I did not know what it was then, I was actually called a talkative. But now that I know, you that is watching this cannot call me a talkative, because I'm trying to communicate a book to you that you may not have the time to read. So by just playing this podcast, listening to it, and going about your day, you're automatically reading in pursuit of purpose. Can you see now that I am fulfilling my own purpose? So that's how it is. Now the next one Purpose coincides with our natural talents and abilities. Purpose never requires something that natural abilities has not provided. God doesn't expect you to do what he has not given you. God doesn't expect you to produce something he has not given you the ability to do. So that's why it just even explains further what we just finished talking about. Everything purpose requires of you is because it has been placed inside of you. So all you need to do is just sit down and begin to know yourself. And that's why when we started this podcast, we started with the book Why You Act the Way You Do. We went ahead to also talk about love languages. All was aimed at discovering you, because when you discover you, when you know you understand your person, you understand your build, you understand everything about you, it gives you an edge. It makes you to identify your talents, your abilities, your capacities, and that on its own is a pointer to purpose. So can you see that everything we are reading is actually curated as personal development and enlarging capacity? Now see, after giving your life to God, don't just stop at giving your life to God. The next thing you should do is to ask for purpose. Find out what his will for your life is. And while you are at it, remember this very important thing. If you don't take anything away from this podcast, just remember that God does not demand of you what he hasn't put inside of you. So if God demands something of you, it's because he has put that thing into your nature. And that is why we said it coincides with natural talents. He puts everything in his creature, the potential and the nature for its purpose. So if you are actually asked to do something, or you find yourself in a situation where you need to do something, just know that as a child of God, there are no coincidences. For you to be able to do that, potential is something you've not discovered yet. Potential is something that is inside of you that you've not yet found out. And until you try, you can't know if you have the potential for it or not. So let's not shy away from opportunities. Let's actually, whenever you come in contact with an opportunity, do the best you can to see or find out. And it's okay to fail. So even if you fail, it's still okay. You learn two things. It's either you learn that, okay, I'm not so good at this, or you learn that if I fail like this, then I can do it like this. So failure actually spurs creativity. It helps you to know if you're good at something, or it helps to push if you can do something better. Let me just point this out. You actually have what you need to be who you are. You don't need any extra thing to be who you are. You have what you need to be who you are inside of you. The capacity of a blender, the capacity of a thermoflask is inside the thermoflask. It is what makes it what it is, or who it is. So you actually have what you need to be who you are. Now, if you don't know your purpose, you probably will live below your potential, because purpose actually births potential. Purpose equals potential. What do we mean by this? When you don't know, just like we said last time, if the purpose of a thing is not known, including humans, abuse is inevitable. So when you don't know your purpose, you actually live below. You see people living below, and that is why the Bible says, I see kings walking on streets, I see princes walking on, and servants riding on horses. That is just an explanation of purpose. When purpose is known, when a king doesn't know he is a king, when a prince doesn't know he's a prince, then they live below their potential. I can't even explain it more than this. The Bible is complete. It has explained it exactly as it should be. Now, provisions go with the assignment. Like my spiritual father, David Ibiomia, would say, there is always provision in your vision. Provision in your vision. So all you need to do is locate your vision, stay in that vision, for there is always provision there. There's provision. Knowing your purpose is important because it determines your provision. What God calls for, he provides. Like in Nigeria, where we are shooting this podcast from, and in our local pidgin English, and if you're not Nigerian, why? Now in our local pidgin English, we say, now who you send, you go give transport. What does this mean? When I send you on an errand, I will be responsible for funding your fare or your transport fare to that place I sent you to. But if I don't send you on an errand, then you cannot expect me to pick up the responsibility or take up the responsibility of giving you a fare to get there. No, it's not my responsibility because I didn't send you there. So this means that when God sends you and you actually follow through on the message that you were sent by God, then he is responsible for providing everything you need to remain in that message or to be on that journey. So most people actually expect God to provide for what he did not send them for. Some people expect God to provide for their plans, and their plans is not in line with his plans, because God's word says in Jeremiah, I know the plans I have towards you. So God has a plan for us, but some people also have their own plan. So what they do is they keep God's plan aside, and they pick up their plan and they bring it to God and start saying, God, please provide for this. And then later it looks like God is wicked, or it looks like God is not interested in helping them out. But that is wrong, because you are giving him a plan that is outside your purpose. You are giving him a plan that is outside your design. You are telling God to foot the plan of a microwave when you are actually not a microwave but a blender. So there's no how that a blender and a microwave can perform the same action or the same purpose. So all we need to do is sit in the purpose that God has placed us. Sit in the place and the position that God has put us, because in that position there is actually provision. As a son and a daughter of God, God covers and shields us as long as we discover and work in his purpose. See, there are a lot of things in purpose. There's protection in purpose. There's provision in purpose. There are a lot of things. Should we look at the life of Jesus? The Bible says, I was studying my Bible, and if you study the book of the Gospels, you see that several times they wanted to kill Jesus, but because he was in purpose and he was in the plans of God for him per time, they couldn't kill him. There was one that said, I was leaving, I laughed. They said after he said something, they picked up stones. They wanted to stone him, but the Bible said he walked through their midst and left. This is the person they wanted to kill. He walked through their midst and left. You are unkillable when you are in purpose, and until you fulfill that purpose, when you fulfill it, then death becomes a transition. Death now moves you from where you are as you're done with purpose to your next level. It transits you from here back to the Father. It is very important for us to discover purpose. I will keep repeating this. A discovery of purpose is a discovery of life. And at this point, we will draw a close to chapter 4. The priority of purpose. Purpose is something every person should prioritize, because in purpose you find and discover potential. You glow without any stress, without any ease. You just glow. I always love shooting podcasts. I always love reading. I find every opportunity to read in the car, on the road. Even sometimes I'm on my phone reading because I have ebooks. I'm on my phone as I'm walking on the road street. Sometimes I have to actually caution myself to be cautious of the road. But when you discover purpose, you just glow and soar in it. Thank you very much for staying with me. I hope you actually enjoyed this particular episode. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and follow. Invite others, and let's cultivate once again the reading culture in our society. I'll be seeing you in chapter 5, and I'm sure you are as curious as I am for what the topic of chapter 5 is. Let's pursue purpose and find out how we can actually make an impact in the world. Thank you very much, and God bless you.